Hey folks, welcome back. I'm Mitch Garvis. I'm here with Stephane Tartaglia, and we are smoking cigars. You're going to find that to be a persistent theme throughout these videos, that we will be smoking cigars. You know why? Because we can. Because we love it. And because
we enjoy it, we can share our passion for cigars.
Now, you and I have two different passions for cigars. I love Cuban cigars, Habanos.
Yes,
you love non-Cuban or NC cigars.
And I have to say I have an issue with that.
Oh, hold on. How can you have an issue with that? Cuban cigars are made in Cuba. Non-Cuban cigars are not made in Cuba. What's the issue?
What's the issue? I think respect must be given to the regions that produce the cigar.
Absolutely. And some cigars are made in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, and some are not. So what's the problem?
Well, the problem is that the ones that are made in Cuba are called Cuban cigars.
Yes, they are.
The ones that are made in Nicaragua are Nicaraguan cigars.
Non-Cubans.
They are non-Cuban, but non-Cuban encompasses a very large amount of regions.
So why don't you talk about those regions a little bit?
Well, let's talk about those regions. I'm smoking an Alec Bradley Prensado, which is made in Nicaragua. My personal favorite cigars come from Nicaragua.
Now, I am smoking a Christoph Sumatra, which says Hecho a Mano Dominicana, which means made by hand, Dominican Republic.
Absolutely.
Non-Cubans.
They are non-Cubans, but they also have a heart and a soul, and that heart and soul deserves to be given a name, which is Dominican Republic.
Now let me ask you a question.
Yes.
You've heard of Robaina cigars.
I have.
The current master of the Robaina plantation in Pinar del Rio, Cuba, is a friend of mine named Hiroshi Robaina. And he and I were talking with my friend Greg of the famous Smoking Fuck You Greg Smoke Rings.
Yes.
And we were discussing the difference between Cuban cigars and non-Cuban cigars, because Greg asked, why are Cuban cigars, in your opinion, better? And I gave a 5-minute lecture on pride of ownership of all of the different jobs. And Hiroshi looked at us and said, very simple. If you look on a map, Cuba is only an inch or two away from Dominican Republic, from Nicaragua, from Honduras. But if you look on a woman's body, the pussy is only an inch and a half away from something very, very, very different. And that was his explanation. Should it be any more complicated than that?
Yeah.
Explain. Hiroshi, by the way, is a very nice guy, but we were drinking that day.
Each region that makes cigars, Cuba, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Honduras, all have very distinct flavors of tobacco. Now, I'm not talking about blended cigars where you take a cigar that has an American wrapper with Dominican and Nicaraguan filler. I'm talking about puro cigars, a cigar that comes from Nicaragua, that has Nicaraguan tobacco in it, a cigar that comes from Dominican, that has Dominican tobacco in it, should be given the respect that they deserve. And I do not believe grouping them all as non-Cubans gives them the respect that they deserve.
Now, I'm going to say something that a lot of my friends would consider controversial. There are bad Cuban cigars.
Absolutely.
Most of them aren't very bad.
No, Cuban cigars are fantastic. And as far as most people are concerned, Cuban cigars are the be-all, end-all of cigars. They are the top of the top. And there are some very good Cuban cigars. There are some Cuban cigars that I don't enjoy. Now, I do
Our friend who's standing right over there, hello, wave to everyone. He lit a Cuban cigar not half an hour ago, a Paul Aranaga, that he was cursing it, and he cut it twice and still wasn't getting a good draw, and then he used the perfect draw tool, and he was still cursing that cigar. It's a Cuban cigar.
It's a Cuban cigar. But you get the same thing with any cigars. Any cigars, you have good ones, you have bad ones. You get good cigars that don't have a good draw, good cigars that don't burn well. It's par for the course across the entire playing field. But at the same time, they deserve the respect.
And you know what? I have a reputation amongst our circle of friends, both in person and on Facebook, that I only smoke Cuban cigars. And if you guys can see what I'm smoking right now, you can obviously see that that is not true. I'm smoking this Dominican Republic cigar. I do respect non-Cuban cigars. Some of them. Now, there are some that are better and there are some that are worse. And we're not talking about Colts and Swisher Sweets and Habitanas. We're not talking about the 5 for $1. I guess there are a lot more than that. But when I used to smoke them, they were 5 for $1 cigars. I'm talking about the hundreds of varieties of cigars that come from all of the different cigar regions. And, for example, Dominican Republic has some spectacular cigars. But they also have some less spectacular cigars. And Nicaragua, spectacular and non-spectacular. And Honduras, spectacular and non-spectacular. So, how do we determine what is going to be a good cigar before we start smoking?
Literature.
Aha, research.
Research.
You know, one of the great things about this hobby is that there are myriad groups on Facebook and articles. I bet you that if you were to take any cigar in this tray or in any of our humidors and type in the name, we would very quickly find out the ratings. And here, let me show you how to. You pull this back and down. There we go. We're just gonna, and you'll notice what we're doing here is we're correcting the burn on his cigar. We'll discuss that in a future video. But you can always research the cigars, and you can always ask people about the cigars.
Ask your friends.
Absolutely.
What do they enjoy smoking?
Absolutely.
What
And
do they not enjoy smoking?
Exactly. We have a friend in common. We were smoking at his house not a week ago, maybe a week ago. His name was Gibby Lutz. And Gibby hates a cigar called Red Witch. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I hate it too. It is the absolute worst cigar I've ever had in my life.
I'll let you in on my secret. I've had one. I enjoyed it.
And that's the interesting thing. You can do all of the research in the world, and you can get all of the opinions in the world. And some people are going to like things that other people don't like.
Everybody's palate is different.
We were talking before about an acid cigar that I smoked last night that was extremely floral. And I read about it, and people love it. People swear by it. I was thinking that I was smoking potpourri, and I don't even like potpourri in my house. But people love it. In matters of taste, you can't judge. Yes, if you look at the online forums, if you look at the magazine Cigar Aficionado, or any of the smoker clubs, they will rate cigars. And you may love them, and you may not like them. I will tell you, I have loved some movies that were panned. I have seen Oscar-winning movies that I hated, because it's all a matter of taste.
Well, I'll tell you a little story. I went to a 2016, the #1 cigar of the year was the
Andalusian Bull.
Andalusian Bull by...
Oh, don't do that to me. It may be in Perdomo?
No, the Andalusian Bull. In any case, I was at the little party for...
Hold on, guy behind the camera, do you remember who makes Andalusian Bull?
Is it an LFD?
LFD.
La Flor
La
Dominicana.
Flor Dominicana. And I was at the party for celebrating that it was #1, and they handed out the Andalusian Bull to everyone to smoke, and I was less than impressed. I would not have put it in the top 10, yet it scored #1 that year.
You know what? Somebody gifted me one of those, and it was in my Perfidor. It was probably my humidor at the time. And somebody came over and said, "Wow, did you know that this was the #1 cigar last year? They're selling this at brick and mortar stores for $75 a cigar."
What?
In Canada. We should mention, by the way, that in Canada, prices for cigars are seriously high. And Justin Trudeau, I know if you're watching, you know that I don't like you, but for God's sake, lower the taxes on our tobacco. Anyway, sorry, I get off topic. Anyways, so $75 this was not a $75 cigar. This was a good $20 cigar with a premium because Cigar Aficionado said it was the #1 cigar of the year. Now, I smoked it, and I would say it was a good $20 cigar, but it was the worst $75 cigar I've ever had in my life.
I would pay $8 for that cigar. Canadian prices.
Plus tax?
No.
Oh, $8 including tax. That's a pretty big cigar for $8, but I understand what you're saying.
It just didn't do it for me, and that's perfectly fine.
And you know, some cigars are going to have creamier taste, and some are going to have spicier taste, some are going to have peppery taste, and some are going to have potpourri, flowery crap.
Nuts and dark chocolate and nutmeg and
earthy tones and floral tones and fruity tones. I always love when people say it's very earthy. What does that mean? It tastes like the
tastes
ground.
like the ground. It has. I was smoking an Amazon Basin the other day.
Oh, another very popular, very
popular. One of my favorite cigars.
It's a great cigar by CAO.
By CAO, and I found with that cigar that I get notes of apricots, of all things.
Yeah.
Again, somebody else might pick up different notes. Everybody's palate is different.
And it's very interesting. I happened to do a wine tour at Peller Estates in Niagara on the Lake this past weekend, or last weekend. And they were talking about the wines, and of course the wines will very often have fruity tastes. Where does the fruity taste come from? Sometimes the grounds were used for fruit orchards before, and sometimes it just happens to be how the grape grows. So it will be different from person to person, and from grape to grape, or tobacco leaf to tobacco leaf.
From year to year.
That's right.
How much sun, how much rain, whether that field was used to grow something else. Everything changes, and everything, including your personal palate, is going to determine what a cigar tastes like.
All right. So I think we've covered this topic a little bit. There's so much more to discuss on
Absolutely.
it. We're going to save that for a little bit later. Why don't we say goodbye to the nice folks for now and let them get back to work, because really, I know you're sitting at your desk with your headphones on. You're supposed to be working. You're supposed to be on that spreadsheet. So why don't you get back to work, you lazy bastard? And no, I'm kidding, of course. But we're going to cut this short. Stephane Tartaglia, I'm Mitch Garvis. Thanks for watching.